Hello, and you're very welcome to another edition of the JMAC Podcast. I'm John Mann, and of course, this podcast is sponsored by orcaretro.com. Use my promo code JMAC Podcast to get 15% off on the website. And this evening, I'm joined by former Tyrone footballer Kyle Coney and former Wicklow footballer John McGrath to talk about last weekend's Connacht final and Munster final, and this weekend's Ulster final and Leinster final. So we are going to start off with yourself, John. How are you keeping?
Yeah, doing very good. Enjoying the sunshine there the last few weeks. Be nice to be able to kick a more ball in it, but it's going on right now. Yeah, plenty to watch as well on TV, so it's good. Plenty of games.
100%. And Kyle, how are you keeping?
I keep well, same as John. Enjoying the sunshine, and we're getting plenty of football here on Friday nights up in Tyrone, so we're getting the benefit of the good weather.
Yeah, interested to hear about that Friday night perspective. We're obviously up in the south here. We're not really seeing any of that, Kyle. So what are you making of all that?
No, it's enjoyable. It's really, really enjoyable. My own club, probably most clubs, on a Monday and a Wednesday, and then have games on a Friday, and sort of gives you a bit of spare time to look about things at the weekend with the family, or whatever it may be. Young fellas maybe get a night out, or you can book a night away or whatever. But no, it's enjoyable. There's a lot of appetite for it. There's a lot of people at the games. It makes, I think, we've retained a lot of players in terms of, when we go 4 or 5 league games deep, we sometimes lose players because they're not seeing a big play of football for seniors or the reserves. So we have a panel of 55 at the minute, so it's mad numbers that at this time of year, 9 league games in, that we still have that kind of numbers around our training,
Yeah, definitely. And to be honest, I'd love if they could adopt the Friday games approach up the south here. And obviously, of course, lads, we're going to reflect on last weekend's action. We had the 2 finals, obviously, in Connacht and Munster. So the first game of the weekend was on Sunday. You had Galway against Mayo. Mayo coming out on top here, 2-14, and Galway was 2-8. And I suppose, John, Galway obviously had a great first half. Damien Comer, Shane Walsh shooting lights out. They blew out of steam in the second half. Mayo's class really shone through. So another heartbreaking loss for Pádraig Joyce's men, John.
Yeah, it was. It's kind of one you expected a right crack off the first half from Galway. I was really expecting them to come out firing, and they did exactly that. I think the first few minutes, Mayo probably got a decent start, a couple of points, but Galway just had a little spell there in the middle, that we were all kind of waiting for the class of Galway to show, and they stepped up. You got Shane Walsh is just one of these Rolls Royce players that we just want to see. Give him the ball. We just there's not many players left in the game where we go to a game and just say, put him in the ball as many times as he can. We want to watch that the same as we want to watch David Clifford. Just give him the ball. Let's see what they do with it. And they did in the first half. They did well. Comer was coming good. Paul Conroy was really good. And they stung Mayo in the middle of the first half for 2 goals. And you're thinking, Jesus, really, maybe Mayo are going to miss the likes of Killian O'Connor. Maybe they are going to struggle when they get to Croke Park. But it wasn't to be. I don't know whether it was James Horan's words at halftime, or whether it was the players come good second half, or whether a little bit of anger with a bit of a pushing and shoving at half time, we call it. But Galway had absolutely no answer to Mayo's power going forward in the second half. They literally could have sat 15 behind the ball and wouldn't been able to stop it. They're just a little bit out of their depth there when they got to Croke Park, and probably say Mayo's experience really shone through with it. Did a couple of really, really decent performances Mayo had, Matty Ruan in the middle was really, really, really impressive. But as I mentioned here a few weeks ago, it's that power Mayo have coming from the defence. It's actually incredible to look when you look through their defensive line. Lee Keegan, Paddy Durkin, Plunkett, they just bomb forward, and just seems like it's just a nightmare to try and stop. And Galway could have done with Kevin Walsh's setup in defence to try and stop it, but it just wasn't to be.
Yeah. And I suppose, John, where do Galway really go from this? Because obviously they've showed great form, I think it was March 2020 before the COVID hit, but that's a long time ago now, John. A lot of teams have kind of improved since that, maybe got worse, got better, but poor Joyce, he has to be frustrated with this one from Sunday, and I know he's obviously trying to build serious blocks up there. It's a bit of a project for him up there, but Shane Walsh, Damien Comer, these are big players for them, but we only really seen them in the first half, John.
Yeah, definitely. Look, when you look around at the strong teams in the country at the moment, you can see their fluidity when they move, when they play together. Now, and I do think the Galway have some cracking footballers, especially up front. But it looks like when the ball gets to Shane Walsh, it's what Shane Walsh going to do with it. When the ball gets to Damien Comer, what's Damien Comer going to do with it? That's not good enough for the top tier teams. They have to interlink. They have to kind of come better as a unit, and it's no fault of their own. They're all individually brilliant players, but they just haven't gelled properly. They haven't gelled yet properly, anyway. And I'm sure Paul Joyce will get that with a bit more time. He's been dealt a tough blow with like only 3 league games this year. He didn't get the full run of it. I'd like to see next year him get a full proper run of it, 7 league games, maybe more, see how he goes in the league. And I'm sure they'll develop, but they just can't do it. They're just not doing it at the moment. Defensively, they're struggling a little bit, I think, as well. They've gone away from Kevin Walsh's setup in defence, and look, rightly so. Paul Joyce isn't that type of player. He's definitely going to adapt to more attack and play, but until they kind of unite and come together and find a way that they can all match and make the best of themselves as a group, and then I think they'll be in that tier just beyond or just behind the top tier teams.
100%. And I suppose is it now time for the Mayo fans to jump on this hype bandwagon now? Like, is there an All Ireland in this team this year, John?
Yeah. I think there's it's open for anybody, really. I think in the last few years we've all been kind of living in hope that someone would beat Dublin, just to liven up the inter-county scene. But it's only been based on hope for the last few years. Here, there definitely is. There's question marks over Dublin, and when question marks are over Dublin, well, then it's an open field for anybody to attack, and that includes Mayo, that includes Kerry, that includes Tyrone, that includes Monaghan, that includes Kildare. That I think Dublin have come down a little bit to a level pegging, and it's for anybody to go at, and no better man than James Horan to rally them boys to have a real crack off it. Like when you go through it, I know Killian O'Connor's a massive loss, but they still have real impressive talent all around the pitch. They have an incredible blend of youth. They have lots of experience. They have power. They have pace. And when you look up front, I think one of the things that stand out to me is the top 3 or 4 teams. They don't just have, like I've kind of mentioned a couple of times in the past, but your marquee player has to stand up, or marquee players have to stand up on the big day. And I think like Mayo, Kerry and Dublin, they have like a forward line of like 4 that are all stepping up on any one day. And Mayo look like they have that at the moment. Ryan O'Donoghue's going well, Tommy Conroy, O'Shea. They definitely have enough talent to have a right crack off it, yeah.
Yeah, well, it'll be definitely very interesting to see how they get on. And I suppose, Kyle, what about yourself? An impressive win for Mayo.
Yeah. I suppose at the start of the first half, we thought that we're in for a right game here. There's 2 goals and 4 points, till a couple of points to Mayo, and you just think, right, game on here. Mayo or Galway have got themselves in the position they wanted. That's obviously Warwick Joyce had set out to do. Get a real quick start, get a lead, get sort of the ascendancy with them, and then half time and the ruckus, I think, as John pointed out, definitely favoured Mayo at half time. I seen it. Aidan O'Shea somebody went to push him, and he's a big unit of a man to be pushed out, so he got his weight in behind it and he fired somebody up against the wall. I seen it slip off. So look, it worked in their favour without a doubt. They came out and hit 1-4 to no score back game on, and I remember, I didn't see the game live at the time. I watched it back a few hours later, and I was actually listening to the radio, and it just seemed to be point after point after. I was struggling to actually hear any Galway player's name being mentioned, and then when I watched it back, I could see what why the radio was like that. The pace and the ferociousness coming from half back line it's just something that we've associated with Mayo over the last couple of years, and then with them dropping down to Division 2, people probably think that's them gone, but we all know that Mayo are a Division 1 side. Without a doubt, they've been there. I think they were the longest serving team in Division 1 previously without being knocked out. So, really impressive. They have 3 or 4 really good forwards. They have got their midfield set up right. They're going to be hard to talk to. I do believe they're going to be hard to talk to. They have a really good blend all over the pitch, and I do think James Horan plays a big factor in all that. He has them boys eating at the palm of their hand. He left and he came back, and there was question marks over whether he should come back, but 100% the right decision for that man to be at the helm of Mayo, because he has them boys all singing off the same hymn sheet.
100%, Kyle. I suppose I've seen a good article about Aidan O'Shea. He gets a lot of abuse, but he still keeps coming back year after year. When you look at it, Kyle, Lee Keegan, Paddy Durkin, Aidan O'Shea, still trucking away, still trying to achieve that goal of an All-Ireland, Kyle. So it's a serious result by them gents.
Yeah, Aidan O'Shea has the same age as myself, and he does, I think, come in for an awful lot of unwarranted abuse. For me, he's probably one of the most consistent performers for Mayo week in, week out. He gets seen a few bits of slack that he's got. He hasn't performed in a few finals or a few semi-finals. It depends what type of performance you want. We all would agree that Aidan O'Shea is not going to go out and kick 4 points. That's the type of player he is. He's a ball winner. He's definitely a tackler. He's always been a great tackler. He gets on his. I would say he has at least 20 plus possessions in every game. He's at the heartbeat of everything at Mayo. Everything is good about Mayo. So it's a testament that he keeps coming back. He keeps trucking away. He gets an awful lot of abuse. Paul Conroy was up personal and close with him, and his big unit as well. So he's a fantastic player. As for the other fellas, Lee Keegan and that, they obviously wouldn't be going back to the well continuously if they didn't think that they could achieve something. I know that's the way that I play, and I'm sure John was the same. If you don't think that you can achieve something, you're not going to put yourself through that work rate. You're not going to put yourself through the sacrifices that you do. And they have been literally a point away from a couple of All-Irelands. So they sense something. They think there's something there for them, and I would definitely not rule them out this year.
Yeah, 100%. Be interested to see how they get on. And lastly on it, Kyle, Galway, as I said to John, where did it really kind of go from here? I know the likes of Shane Walsh, Damien Cober lead line up front, but it's a big job for them next year to kind of get back on the horse. And I suppose Sunday was a massive, massive chance for them to go back at the top table.
Yeah, John stated earlier that Shane Walsh is one of those players where doesn't matter if you're a defender or a forward or midfielder, wherever, any football fan loves to see him on the ball. Like the way he just sometimes stands you up, solos the right, solos the left, and just burns you down the line. You just have to sit back and enjoy it. But to me, I struggle to see an identity in their play. I struggle to see, Conor Gleeson was trying to get the ball to the cornerback, and the cornerback's toes was right on the edge of the D. So they had no game plan in terms of kickouts. It seemed to be just like, let's work it up the field and let's see what happens. The structure of play didn't seem to be really there. Damien Comer's he's a fantastic player, but to me, they don't utilise him enough. I mean, a few years ago, he was at the edge of the square, causing problems for long high balls in. He got a goal against Dublin with a flick. Cluxton came out to catch the ball with him, and he flicked it over his head. To me, they just need to find more players to contribute to what they're about. They can be an attacking force. They can be a really, really good team. But to me, they need to go away. Paul Joyce needs to go away this year. Look hard and deep into Galway football and see what they can get to help these boys, because we know Corofin are obviously one of the best teams ever to play club football. Have Kieran Malloy from there. Surely there should be more to help or to create a better identity among their squad to push, because they have some fantastic players, but it's getting that blend. And as you say, with 3 league games, maybe that's not enough. But all teams in 3 league games roughly, so we can't use that as a sole excuse. But I would like to see them. It's always a team that I've always liked watching down through the years. So I would like to see them back down at the top table.
Yeah, 100%. And I suppose Park Joyce has a bit of work to do down there for the next year ahead. And then the next game on Sunday, the Munster final, Kerry 4-22, Cork 1-9. And Kyle, what do you really say about this one?
I don't even know what to say about it anymore. Cork obviously started really well, really brightly with a goal from Brian Hurley and a few points from, I think, his brother Brent or Michael, and that literally was the end of Cork. I think Kerry hit 1-something after the water break to no score again, and that's it. Game over with Cork. They were a kick of a ball away from getting relegated into Division 3. We know that the attacking prowess that Cork or Kerry have. It's scary to think that David Clifford only scored a point out of 422. If that man had been on form and kicked 1-4-1-5, we're into a 30-odd point defeat here. With the team last year that Cork turned over, that shows you how wrong Kerry got their matchups and their tactics last year. But Kerry are a frightened team, with what they have. I would say from 5, 6, and 7 up, they are scary going forward. They've only got a real minor problem at the back, and I think they sorted it out to a certain degree. They have Tom back in there, an awful lot of difference. He wasn't there for most of the league game, and I know last year Mark and Peter Hart, he's a real ferocious defender. So it's good to have him back there. He tightens up their full back line where everyone says they have weaknesses. But as we spoke about earlier, rookies have them favourites for the All-Ireland. Probably on current form, they are the favourites to win the All-Ireland. I don't think at the minute Dublin are a bit off the mark. But that game at the weekend just showed that the difference in class in Munster is scary down there. That could go on for a few years if things continue to develop the way they are. Kerry could be, it could be going 6, 7, 8 in a row if things continue the way they are. And I know that John doesn't have a lot to say about Cork, but it's just unsightly the way things are going down there at the minute.
Yeah, kind of definitely is. And I suppose looking at that game, I know Cork obviously started well, did a fresh start, and I know that at near the end of the first half, Kerry really did start to get a grip in that game. But what happens in a game like that, Kyle? Because years ago, maybe 10 years ago, the Munster final was one of the games of the year, and now it's gone to the absolute dogs, Kyle.
Well, Munster final was a game we all loved watching. You always had an almost packed house, no matter if it was in or it was in Killarney, Fitzgerald Stadium. Just seems to be a thing of the past now, nearly, where yes, it's probably still a fan favourite if we allowed everyone back in and stuff, because it is a special day. But in terms of a spectacle as a game, it's much. But as you said, Cork started really, really brightly, but Kerry just keep turning away of what they're good at. And Paddy Clifford was absolutely exceptional. He really took the spotlight away from David, because obviously he's the name on everyone's lips when Kerry are playing. He's the one to watch. But if anyone's been following Kerry club football the last couple of years, Paddy Clifford has been doing it on a regular basis, and they've been crying out for him to be on the Kerry panel the last couple of years. And Johnny O'Shea, he had a bit of a manhandling a couple of years ago from Lee Keegan in a league game or league semi-final in Croke Park, and that now tables have just turned, where now he knows how to get himself out of those situations. He's become a real 9 out of 10 every week for Kerry. Paul Geaney chips in with 2 goals where you nearly think that they're trying to push Paul Geaney out of it, but he just keeps stepping up every week, and he comes up with big scores. Like he got 2 goals against Tyrone in the league. He got 2 goals this week against Kerry in the Munster final. They're a special outfit, so they are. And as I say, that game was gone well before half.
And it was very disappointing, I suppose. Lastly on it, Kerry, as you were saying, Kyle, they are the bookies' favourites to win in All-Ireland. They are the form team at the minute, and it's a serious chance for another team to go on and win in All-Ireland this year, Kyle. So is now the time to start jumping on that bandwagon?
This bandwagon's probably been going as a wee while now. A couple of years, Kerry have been knocking on the door, and it's, look, in form, they are the best team in Ireland at the minute. There's no, in my opinion, there's no 2 ways about it. They are the informed team. They're blowing teams away. There's nothing you can really point out about their performance to say they're overly weak in that area. Yes, people could question their full back line, but if you're able to put 422 away, there's a good chance that you're keeping the right bit of that out to win most games. But the bandwagon, I would say, Kerry will see that themselves realistically. An All-Ireland semi-final is only the stage where they want. That's the bare minimum for Kerry people. I was in Killarney a couple of weeks ago, and I was chatting to a few people, and the old saying does go that they don't really get excited till an All-Ireland semi-final and All-Ireland final. And I think there's a whole lot of excitement in Kerry at the minute with this team, because for me, I think that they're going to be hard to stop.
Yeah, 100%. It'll be interesting to see how they go this year. And of course, John, you kept a good eye on this, and Jesus, it was shocking stuff, really.
Yeah. Well, depending on the way you want to look at it, if you like watching beautiful attacking football, it's far from shocking. But Cork, to put the negative spin on it, I suppose, they're just really just a cut away at the moment down there from Kerry. Like, I said it before here that I'm not overly impressed with Cork, seeing as all the advantages they have in terms of numbers and clubs and finance, Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and they're just not living up to it then when they try to get together as a whole county. But look, the game itself, they did a real right crack off it in the first 10-15 minutes. You can see it was kind of nearly a Keane O'Neill aggression factor from them in the first few minutes. I'm sure he was driving it into him before show up about reminding them everybody been writing them off, and they came out and they gave it a right crack. They left plenty of space in there in front of Brian Hurley, and he played well. He won a couple of frees. He didn't convert 1 or 2 himself, but he did well. His goal was a cracker. Michael Hurley clipped in with 2 points, and they looked to be going really well. But it was just one of those things. When the water break came, you just sensed that just watch what's going to happen next. Because last year when they beat Kerry, I wasn't even overly impressed with Cork. I thought Kerry were on top the whole way through, even though they were brutal. They were still on top in the game. But when they were behind going into that water break, I just sensed there was going to be it was like a light switch moment, and it was exactly what happened. Kerry just came out and blew them out of the water. They went from scoring 1-6 to 4 points down to scoring the next 1-8 to a point before half time. They just went at them. And when I mentioned earlier about Galway kind of not being kind of composed or not kind of playing as a unit, couldn't be a bigger contrast compared to what Kerry are doing at the moment. Everybody seems to be on the same pathway there. Defensively, I think they've got their act in order as well. Tom Foley was struggling a little bit to change. Brian O'Beaglock went back there. He asked questions then of Hurley going forward. Obviously, we've seen the goal. But as a defensive unit, they seem to be getting tighter each game they play. And there's just a couple of plays, I know they racked up massive scores, but there's a couple of plays in particular that just stand out to me that it's just not off the cuff. The way I mentioned about Galway just going out and playing off the cuff, it's like they're nearly rehearsed. Like there's Paul Ganey's goal, for example, when Paddy Clifford flung a ball 50 yards out to Sean O'Shea, who was unmarked, and he's going through, and I'm not sure if he copped it. He's running straight through the goal, and Paul Ganey's ahead of him. But if you look at Killian Spillan's body position, he comes kind of sideways and runs behind him as if it's rehearsed, knowing the chances here is that he's either going to get hit a wall and there's going to be a flick back for an easy point, or Paul Gainey is going to be the overhanging player. So there's nothing off the cuff there. It's all rehearsed, it's all planned. They're playing to strategies. They're playing to probably nearly set plays, and they're really just going at it from every angle. And we talked about Mayo earlier with their defensive unit, just bombing from everywhere. If you go through Kerry's defence, Brian O'Biglock's goal, he's coming straight out of defence. Tom Sullivan, 2 points, bursting up the field. Gavin White just wouldn't stop bursting out of defence. Paul Murphy coming through. Like, at the moment, it looks like if you're going to have any chance of beating Dublin, that's what you need to do. Mayo are doing it, Kerry are doing it. They're the 2 leading teams at it. And then obviously you flick up top and you can just have your pick of who's going to rack up the scores. And they just seem to be all clicking on the one day. It's not really Sean O'Shea one day, and the following day it's Paul Gainey, and the following day it's Clifford. They just seem to be all kind of clipping in. They're all kicking their points. Sean O'Shea is averaging 9 or 10 points a game. Paulie Clifford's kicking his 2 or 3 points. Paul Gainey's 2 goals, 2-1 at the weekend. And we won't even mention David Clifford this weekend. Like, so it's bookies' favourites, most definitely. Now, don't get me wrong, Dublin are obviously going to get going, and we know what they have to offer. But I'd be fully believing that at the moment Kerry are definitely favourites for Ireland in my view.
Yeah, definitely, John. And I suppose, how disappointing is it to kind of watch on in this game? As I was saying to Kyle 10, 11 years ago, this is probably one of the games of the year. You know, we had our pundit Daniel Goulding shooting the lights out in these games years ago, John. So it's some fall from grace really for both for Cork, I suppose, in a game like this, John.
Yeah, it is. They've had a dire 10 years, and then to flip it, Kerry have had one of their best kind of times, kind of underage, with their minors and 20s coming through. But look, Cork they are getting their act together again. Like they've had a very good under-20s team there last year, the year before. The minors are going all right. They will come. They're definitely they've went back and started, but it was quite a few years after Kerry did it. I've no doubt they'll come again with that group of players, but I think it'll take a really impressive management team to step in with them. I think in order for you to bring through youth and bring through those good underage teams, you need to have a good management team that's with it, and that's going to be able to bring them through. And I'd just be afraid that the next man that steps into Cork there, they don't drag through that group with that crop of players. The calibre is there, players. They have everything else around in terms of finance, of sports direct there. They have a large bake, they have a big county, but they just need to bring in. I'm not sure what McCarthy is going to be doing at the end of this year, but if they're bringing in new management next year or two, it needs to be of a high caliber that's going to bring through that crop of players.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a lot of work to be done in Cork football for the next couple of years ahead, and we can look forward to this weekend's action, lads. The Ulster final, Monaghan against Tyrone, and on Sunday you've Dublin against Kildare. So I suppose Monaghan against Tyrone, it's going to be a mouth-watering clash, and I suppose Kyle, no better man to ask, what's the prediction for this one?
Monaghan by 8, maybe.
You wish for
me. Look, going by both games, both semi-finals, obviously I was lucky enough to be at the Armagh Monaghan game. An absolute crazy game, like an absolute. I'm not even sure if it was down to like bad defending from both teams or just let's just go for this. It was just I remember taking a few notes, and by the first 13 minutes I had 2 sides of the page gone because I just stopped taking notes. I stopped taking notes, and because there was that much going on, there were scores, there was turnovers, there was wides, there was shorts. I didn't know what to take to review. So, but it was one of those games where you could not take your eyes off it. Monaghan looked dead and buried, obviously, in the 5 minutes to go. Armagh made 3 really bad hand passes to keep Monaghan in the game, and they went up the field, and we obviously know who finished up with the ball on a couple of occasions, Conor McManus. On the other side, we had Tyrone. As I spoke about you, John, 5 minutes, the game just turned. Michael Murphy missed a penalty that was never a penalty. Tyrone go up the field, get a point. Michael Murphy sent off, and then Tyrone going a point up at half time. So instead of a 5 point, swing, Tyrone automatically be in the game down to 14 men, and then there's probably one of few teams who can keep the ball as well as Tyrone and work with. Michael Hart done an awful lot of work, of possession and keeping the ball, and most of those players are there, so they knew what to do. They knew how to work the spare man as such, and Tyrone orchestrated it down to a fine art. But this weekend's game, it's for me, we have a contrast of something similar. Both teams like attacking from sort of the half-back area with, Carl O'Connell, and then we have Ryan McInnessie, who sort of drops deep and comes late with the ball. We have Desi Ward, who was exceptional against Armagh, who was dropping back. Darren Hughes loves long bursting runs from in that area of the field as well. Tyrone obviously have Peter Hart, they have Michael O'Neill, they'll have Tina McCann probably to come on at some stage. Colin Kilpatrick, Brian Kennedy, who love running with the ball. So it's going to be an interesting game, and I think tactically, it's going to come down to who makes the least mistakes, because there's not a big pile in the two teams. Maybe I think just Tyrone's bench could be the factor in this game. Don't see them starting McShane. I don't see them starting McKenna. I don't see Kieran McCann starting, because I think they're making too much of an impact for them to I think that they're causing too much havoc when they come on. Kieran McCann come on, kick 3 points. Conor McKenna, I'm not sure if he's 100% fit, so I don't see him starting, and Cahill is obviously only filtering back in small bits. But this weekend's game is going to come down and say whoever makes the least mistakes, and I believe that the Croke Park factor will come into play here with Tyrone just knowing the ground that bit better, having a bit more frequency there over the last few years, and I would expect Tyrone to come out and top by maybe 2-3 points here.
Absolutely, and I suppose what come on and do this weekend, Kyle? I know obviously there's big reliance on the likes of Conor McManus and the Hughes brothers, but is it time for the likes of Conor McCarthy, Jack McCarron, some of these boys to step up? Jack McCarron obviously had a great first half against Armagh last day, so is it time to let Mr. McManus have a break this weekend?
Well, I did say I was on the radio a few weeks ago, and I do believe that Monaghan are not as reliant on Conor McManus in open play now as they were. I think, yes, he plays, obviously he starts and he chips in with scores throughout the game, and he takes free kicks that's closer to the goals than begging. But I think he manages the game now well, where he plays in clutch moments. We've seen, obviously, against Armagh, he went side to side looking the ball. He went looking the ball, and they knew that they didn't want anyone else on the ball, only him, possibly Jack McCarron. But they knew that the man they really wanted was Conor McManus. And to me, they have younger fellas, Aaron Mulligan, Jack McCarron. Those boys have really stood up. They have played, like Jack McCarron is one of those players that can just make something happen in a split second. He has a lovely way up with him. He's got a lovely dummy, even for the goal. I think it might have been, I'm not sure who scored the goal, but he held the ball really, really well against Armagh. He gave the pass just at the right time. That's something, that's very, very hard to teach players. That's either in them or it's not. And Jack McCarron has that in abundance. So Tyrone have to get their matchups right, and there's going to be jobs all over the field for different boys. As I said, Ryan McInnessie is going to take a serious amount of watching. Carl O'Connell always chips in with a couple of scores. So I don't think they're just as reliant on Conor McManus. I think Monaghan have a wide spread of scores, and it makes for a fantastic game. This is going to go to the wire, I believe, and it's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward. Actually, I'm going down to it, so I'm looking forward to being there.
Any spare tickets, Kyle?
I'm working for them.
Brilliant stuff. Brilliant stuff. John, yourself, Monaghan against Tyrone, a fascinating game this weekend.
Yeah, it is. It's a. You know what? Before games thrown up, you always get your own opinion beforehand, and you kind of think, oh, I think it'll go this way, and I think it'll go that way. This game could go any way of 5-10 ways. Like, you just don't know what's going to happen. I agree with Kyle there. Tyrone's bench is really, really important. They're incredibly strong. Like, geez, to think of Mark Bradley coming on maybe as well, along with McShane and Tiernan and McKenna as well. Like, it's incredibly strong. I know before the last game there, the commentary on TV were talking about their team selection, and it looks like they've gone back to Mickey Hardway of with a few guys named in the half forward line, kind of more defensive minded. But they couldn't have got it better. They got it spot on with the way the game's going to pan out. Now they got a bit of helping hand with Michael Murphy being sent off. But if you're keeping those in reserve and you still have a game, you're still in that game 15 minutes to go, you are in a real good position, really good position, because they're not just kind of lively players, they're powerful men as well. And that's the last thing you want to be facing if you're a tired defender coming into the last 15 minutes of a game. But on the flip side of that, Monaghan came out of blocks last day and they rocked 4 goals. In the league a couple of months ago, they banged in 3 goals as well in the first half against Donegal. They have that in their locker as well, that they can just come out and go at a team. Their firepower is really, really impressive at the moment. So yeah, it can go any way. But the only worry I have for Tyrone is Darren Mccurry is incredible, shooting the lights out there, and I've no doubt he can go at it again as well this weekend. Matty Donnelly, if he's pushed into full forward line, is a real bonus player in there as well. But you're coming up against the likes of Duffy, is it a cornerback? The Connor Boyle and Ryan Wiley, and they're serious operators. And you need to be asking questions further out the field with more attacking players as well. So I would like to see Tyrone really go at them as well and ask questions, because if you're leaving it up to those boys inside to kind of kick it over the bar time and time again, you could be in a little bit of trouble. Like, just going through kind of some of the figures, like Darren McCurry's hit 17 points in 2 games, and Matty Donnelly's hit 2, and then you've had Sludden's hitting 3 points. And outside that, it's just been kind of a point here and there throughout the rest of the team. In contrast, then, compared to what we talked about earlier, Kerry and Mayo and all, and they have 4 or 5 guys racking up big scores. So look, I just hope that Tyrone are still in the game when it comes into melting pot, where they can fling in those 3 or 4 guys that can really cause problems. And look, I'm sure Conor McManus will at some stage have a big part to play or something to say before the final ball is kicked.
That is a big talking point in Tyrone. People want, the game before the game we seen against Donegal. Technically, McGarry got man of the match, and he's probably not known for kicking 3 points in a game. But they have Tyrone have a way of playing in terms of they play Mailer, they play McGarry. Now Sludden plays 6 for his club. McCurry's the only out and out forward. Matty Donnelly can play between 10 and 6 for his club. That's where he operates between 2 positions. So that sometimes causes a bit of unrest within Tyrone, and it has done down through the years where we have went with defenders in the forward line. Look, and it worked against Donegal because we've seen that Donegal probably have halfbacks who are really attacking as well. So that sort of worked in Tyrone's favour, where they weren't as tight, they were loose, and it gave room for McGarry to get a few scores. This time, Donegal or Monaghan are going to be a whole lot tighter across that line. They're going to provide Tyrone with a totally different option, and I would love to see more attacking players in the Tyrone forward line. I really would. I would love to see Mark Bradley get more game time. I would love to see Cathal McShane start. I would love to see Derek Canavan. I would love to see McCurry out all playing together, because at the end of the day, as we go back to the Kerry and Dublin, there's not too many half backs named in the forward line. 9 times out of 10 you have 5 or else 6 forwards named, and that's ultimately what wins you games.
Yeah, 100%, and a game we're really looking forward to this weekend. And in the Leinster final, you've the Mighty Dubs against Kildare. So, John, Kildare have a massive chance here.
They have as good a chance as any team has in Leinster in the last 10 years. To be honest, look, I'm not going to say Kildare are fantastic at the moment and going really well. They've done well. They've got to a Leinster final. They got their win against Westmeath. They got their win against an impressive Offaly. They're doing well. Look, they're coming up against the machine that is Dublin. Now, and we all know Dublin can just come out and end this game within 10 minutes. And I know, even though they'll be fired up as well, because there's been question marks over Dublin the last few weeks. But there's question marks for a reason. Wexford putting up a decent performance. Like it couldn't become a surprise if Kildare rocked Dublin in some way at the weekend, because the signs are there. Now look, I could be here on Monday saying, sure, Jesus, we should have known Dublin were going to win by 25 points. But the signs are there, the question marks are there. I'm not saying Dublin are cracking, but when you take Cluxton out of that net for Dublin, all of a sudden the playing field is starting to level up with teams. Whether it's him just being taken out of goal, or even the mental side of it, like teams can now properly step up and press on them. Because you just see, we all hear about Cluxton cracked here or Pierre Cluxton cracked there in certain games. He cracked for probably a spell of 3 or 4 minutes in any game ever. I know Kerry rocked him in the first half of the game a few years ago, where they got 2 goals before half time, and he put 2 kickouts out over the sideline. He came out in the second half and hit 100% kick-out rate. So taking that out of net automatically levels the playing field in some way, or brings it closer to it. And then I can't stop thinking of Derek Lowndes leaving the squad. I think there's a lot more to it than meets the eye, I would think, because like Dublin against Wexford, they've been missing. Jack McCaffrey, would say, is gone. Johnny Cooper wasn't playing. Merchant is injured. McDade is gone. So that half back line was there for the taking. It was there for a spot, and Eric Lowndes still wasn't getting game. So I can only imagine he's gone off in a huff. And under Jim Gavin, no one ever went off in a huff. He always found a way to keep everybody happy. And that's only my view of it and my thought on it. But it just doesn't look good with him stepping away when there's only 5-6 weeks away from an All-Ireland final. He was at that stage. Throw into that all the retirements: Michael Darren McCauley, Mannion leaving away, Jack McCaffrey leaving away. There's just a litany of players after dropping off. And even though none of them were on the starting team really, they're still the standard drivers. They're still the ones that are training, pushing A versus B. They're still the ones that are demanding really high levels. And when that's taken away, when I think it's 8 or 9 of that squad that has multiple All-Irelands, when that's taken out of the squad, very hard to replace that on the training ground. So I just think standards there may be starting to drop a little bit. And look, I'm sure they'll get over this weekend, or they may get over this weekend, but when they come up against bigger fish, I think the playing field will level off a bit, and somebody could have a right crack off them this year. In terms of Kildare, I think they're going all right. They've a decent forward line. Jimmy Hyland's going all right. They've Daniel Flynn back in the squad as well. He's going to want to make up for, I think, last time he played Dublin, need a bit of an off day. And obviously, I think Neil Flynn is a really, really, really good player. Incredible free taker. He's just a nice player, and will rack up scores day in, day out. So they've a chance to start off the weekend there and give them a right crack. And look, we'll know an awful lot more about Dublin after this weekend.
100%. We will wait and see. And I suppose, can Kildare take anything from that Meath game, John? I know obviously Meath gave them Dublin a really good rattle in the second half. So can Kildare take anything from that performance?
Yeah, they can take belief from it, and the same as they can from the Wexford game. When look, Dublin, again, I'm going to say it again. Dublin could come out and just blow the lights out, but when you smell blood like that, I'm sure Kildare will go after it. Like Meath showed like that they can really press them and go at them, and run at them. And look, we say this about every defense. If you run at a defense, they're vulnerable. Of course they are. Like you're running full tilt at a defense, but the Dublin defense at the moment is missing a massive chunk of their team, and they really need to figure out what they're going to do with James McCarthy, because they need to figure out who's going to play midfield with Fenton, because they need James McCarthy to be sitting in the half back line, to take off the shackles as well, to be able to get forward, because the midfield, as much as he's fabulous, it's robbing Peter to pay Paul, and he's just too valuable for them, because his game smarts in defence really shine through. And when you're missing some of the other caliber players they need to have him somewhere across the half back line. Now, I don't know what way they are with John Small. Is his injuries clearing up, his hamstring problem? But they're really going to need to kind of tighten up a little bit there, because they have, I won't say relatively young, but a couple of newcomers there. And if Kildare can just find a couple of pockets, take them wide, obviously not go down their throat, because Dublin will just gobble you up when you go down the throat of them. They can come up with a system there, and they keep it wide and they stretch Dublin's defence. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Dublin could really, really trouble them, yeah. Or Kildare could really trouble them.
Let's hope not, John. Let's hope not. It seems to be trying to crack the Da Vinci Code, trying to beat these Dublin lads. And I suppose, Kyle, what about yourself? Dublin, Kildare this weekend, and what's the verdict on it?
Yeah, I'd be on the same wavelength as John's. You have to take, we can only judge it on what we can see at the minute. When we see Dublin, scraping past sort of Wexford, not scraping past them, but just doing enough to get over the line, and doing enough to get over the line against Meath. There was a big call in that game where it was 100% a penalty for Meath, and that decision, I'm not sure if it was Conor Lane was refereeing it, but when you're on the money, he was right on the play. There's a great picture of him. He's sort of like crouched down and he's looking at the decision, and for the life of me, I don't know how he gets that wrong. If for me, if that's Dublin get the penalty. That's not saying that but me, that was a penalty. That changes the dynamic of the game. Me, they're well in it at that stage, and who knows what happens after that, because there was only a handful of points in it at the finish up, and the game could go either way. But for Kildare, it's probably, yes, they played Westmeath and they played Offaly. The problem that Kildare have is just they haven't faced this type of opposition really this year. If they had been operating in Division 1, they might have had a better chance of knowing what they came up against, because this game just steps up a notch again in terms of pace, in terms of decision making. You don't get them the same length of time on the ball to make. So, look, for me, just basing it on what we have seen, I still expect Dublin to come out a 5 or 6 point winner. But as John, they're going to have a right go. They have to have a right go. They have to smell blood. They have to sense that there's something, not just all there. Dublin's strength and depth, as we've alluded to, is definitely not the same. I know that they used a few players that hadn't really seen championship game time against Meath. So Dublin are considerably weaker. I said it a few weeks ago that this is the most vulnerable they've been in 5 or 6 years. And the whole question over the Cluxton thing comes back into play this weekend again, because as much as Cluxton says nothing, still everything to be said, because what's happening, at the end of the day, if Dessie Farrell knew what was happening, just comes out and says what's happening, and when he say you don't know, then that means he genuinely doesn't know. It's not as if he's trying to play us, because Jim Gavin would have had the smarts to say, Stephen is such and such here, this is what he is, we'll let him be, he needs to deal with that in his own time. Jazzy came out and said, "Look, we don't know." So, there's a lot of rumours going about. There's a lot of whimpers going about that, maybe he wasn't happy that the COVID protocols and all was broke that time. I'm not sure, but that question mark's still there, and that puts more pressure on Evan Comfort now. If Cluxton says he's retired, then everyone automatically thinks now it's Evan Comfort's time. Now Evan Comfort's still in Cluxton's shadow. In my opinion, it's still all about, is he coming back? Is he not coming back? As we say, for me, looking back and looking at his last few years, look at the keepers. We always talk about Cluxton, we talk about Begg, and we talk about Patton. They start every single attack. Every good team, all top teams, maybe with bar the likes of Kerry at the moment, who have a keeper in only has last maybe 3 or 4 weeks. An injury to the other keeper. Attack, all are involved. The Cluxton puts the ball out, he finds the players, and he starts their attack realistically. Morgan does the same for Tyrone. Began can put it 80-90 yards with one kick, and next thing it's over the bar. Comerford doesn't have that. And if Kildare get a squeeze right up the pitch, that's where I think Dublin, don't have that luxury now of Cluxton being able to find you. Comerford doesn't have that in his. Yes, he's a brilliant keeper, but to me, just a step away from the level that Cluxton have. So, I sense Kildare putting a real press on, being in the game for 40-45 minutes, but I still think just Dublin's know how they'll take them through the other side, and a 5 or 6 point victory will see them through.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we wait and see this weekend. And to wrap it up, lads, John, who will be your player to watch this weekend and the bet of the weekend?
Player to watch. I'm keeping a close eye on Darren Mccurry. I'm looking forward to seeing what he's going to do against it with a tight knit defense. And look, there's a lot of lights that are going to be shining down on him to see if he can back it up. Like 17 points in 2 days isn't bad going, especially when he's not the biggest of men either. Like, so a lot of his ball has to be along the ground. Like, so he's a player I like kind of watching because he does dazzler. He's dazzler for a reason, I'm sure. I'm looking forward to seeing him play. But look, there's players all over the park and both these games. Like, look, it's going to be interesting to see what Dublin can do. Like, Dublin they still have Dean Rock, Conor Costello, Kilkenny, and Conor Callahan up front. Seeing if they can drag them over the line there now and see if they can kickstart their year properly now and banish all these question marks we're putting on them. It'd be interesting to see them with the weekend, all right. Bet of the weekend.
Don't think there's much value, unfortunately.
No, there's not. Maybe Neil Flynn over the scoring points ratio. I don't know what it is yet, but he's racking up big scores too. And he's 1-7 and 7.114 in 2 games. Isn't bad going for a fella. So keep a close eye on him as well. See what he does.
Absolutely. And what about yourself, Kyle? The bet of the weekend and the player to watch this weekend?
I can't say the Dazzler because he's a close mate of mine, so I can't say that. I'll leave that to John there because he'll love the attention. So he is. I really like the look of Aaron Mulligan from Monaghan. They take him off about 45-50 minutes into the game against Armagh, but he was really causing them problems. He was finding himself in wee pockets where number 11 loves to be. He was finding himself just behind the 45 and he's playing a few nice balls into the full forward line. He's a real nice way about it. The way he goes about things, he was able to take solos and be stepping back off a bit like Shane Walsh can do. He can step back and still be in full control of the ball. And to me, he's a real dainty player. He's very, very young. So, it's how Tyrone manage that. So, to me, he is one to watch this weekend. Without a doubt, he's got a lovely way with him. So, keeping a close eye on him on Saturday. For me, the bet, I think, Dublin, I think over the last couple of years have always done the spread, whatever that may be. I think over the last few years it's been most games 8 or 10 points, or maybe some games depending who they're playing, it's been up around 15, and they blew that away almost every time. But to me, I think Kildare would get inside at this time. So whatever the handicap I would be doing, Kildare plus the points for me, I think it's going to be closer than people think.
100%. Well, we're really looking forward to the action this weekend. Thanks a million for joining me this week, guys. And of course, this podcast is sponsored by orgoretro.com. Use the promo code JMAC Podcast to get 15% off on the website. John, Kyle, thanks a million.
Thanks.
No bother.